All right, gang, we've got our first flip. Wait until you see this. We got the latest numbers coming in on the Republican versus Democrat turnout on Election Day. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you stay sane in these insane times. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You are not going to want to miss a single video update throughout the day. The general assessment here is that this is a very, very Trumpy, very red electorate coming out today. Now, of course, we're early. Things could change. But right now, as we speak, the Republicans are coming out in enormous numbers. The Democrats, frankly, couldn't be more opposite. Again, it's early. We're all so traumatized from 2020. It's early. We still have plenty more election day to play out. I have to use that as the caveat here, as I don't want to get you whipped up. But right now, as we speak, all the major indicators point to a very, very big Republican turnout. And we're already seeing it in the U.S. island territory of Guam. Let's start with a little fun here with the Western Pacific island of Guam. They are reporting their results in as we speak. Now, I mean, of course, this is only ceremonial, but if you don't know, Guam went overwhelmingly with Biden back in 2020. Biden won every single county, or what we would call counties. He won by 14% of the vote. Again, purely ceremonial, but it does give us a sense of the momentum of where this election is going. So take a look at the vote totals thus far. Look at this. With 50% in, Trump is within 3. Trump is within freaking 3 with 50% of the vote counted. It's an 11-point swing to Trump. At this rate, she's going to barely pull this off. Again, Biden won by 14 points. So what we'll be assessing all throughout the day is the extent to which the electorate is moving right. We predicted the electorate would move 4 to 6 points to the right. And here we are in the first results we get, ceremonial as they may be. And freaking Guam is swinging twice that to the right. And that swing is giving us officially our first seats flip. And these are not ceremonial. These are real. And yes, I said seats plural. According to the exit polling, it appears Republicans have flipped the Guam legislature for the first time in the last 16 years. The Guam legislature has been Democrat since 2008. And so, if you've been with us for a while, we've been saying this election seems a lot more like 2008 than it does 2016. But of course, in the opposite end, where we benefit from it. And lo and behold, the first results we get in this election are to 2008 indicator. The legislature in Guam has flipped to the Republicans first time since 2008. So what does that mean? What's happening here at home? Well, I'm glad you asked. But first, tonight and tomorrow will be absolutely historic. Whichever way it goes, it is going to be epic. But even if Trump wins, by the time the swamp is finally drained, it may be too late to save our retirement funds. And I'm being totally serious here. We all know that the current administration has policies in place, and even crazier ones to come if they win, to keep Americans poor and working, and to shrink up wealth that has been created over generations of hard work and move that wealth via taxes and other schemes to the bureaucrats in D.C. We all know this. And some are even saying that these types of life-destroying policies might even get worse for a season if Trump wins, as an elitist backlash against the MAGA movement. I mean, think about all the power BlackRock and Soros and others have over our money. Gang, that is why you've got to hedge yourself in the best of times and the worst of times, and nothing does that like gold. Click the link in the description and please talk to our good friends over at Goldco about how you can protect your money and wealth with the timeless value of gold. Whatever happens tonight, you're going to wish you had some very secure, precious metals in your portfolio. Just take some time just to talk with them, see what they can do for you. Just go to turleytalkslikesgold.com to get your free gold and silver kit, which shows you how to get into precious metals tax-free and penalty-free, even if your money's still in a retirement account like an IRA or 401k, and you may already qualify to get up to $10,000 and free silver. Click that link in the description below right now. All right, so turning our attention back home here, remember, as I argued in our first video this morning, the key for understanding what to expect today is really very, very simple. Are Democrats showing up? They didn't show up for the early vote. Republicans are leading or tied in 6 of the 7 swing states for the early vote, and that's largely because of the steep decline in Democrat early voting. So that massive lead that they amassed in early voting in 2020 just simply did not reappear. So the fundamental question is, will those Democrats who voted early in 2020 but not in 2024, will they show up on Election Day? And so far, the answer to that is a big no. And one of the key metrics that we're using to assess Democrat turnout is the minute-by-minute database of Florida's Election Day turnout. Again, you can get more information on that from our first video. I go over it in detail. But what we can do here is compare the 2020 Republican to Democrat turnout in terms of the percentage of the electorate to get an idea of the extent to which Democrats are or are not turning out today. Again, because we're leading in 6 of the 7 swing states, when all said and done, this election comes down to whether the Election Day turnout is red or blue. If it's red, we win. It's that simple. If it's blue, we don't. That's the advantage of going into Election Day with an early vote lead in the states that matter. So as of the making of this video, the GOP has just surpassed a 1 million ballot lead over the Democrats in Florida. Florida's absolutely crushing it, but we'd be silly to take that standard, as it were, and apply it to, say, Pennsylvania. That said, though, our good friend Seth Keshel, the data analyst, has pointed out both Pennsylvania and Michigan do tend to move the same way as Florida does in every single election since 1952, with the sole exception of 2020, of course. But if Trump pulls off a win by upwards of 10 or more points in Florida, which it looks like he's going to easily do at this point, it's going to be hard seeing how Pennsylvania and Michigan are not pulled at least in the same direction as well. Right now, and this is what I want you guys ultimately to glean from, it would be absurd to apply that 1 million vote margin to Virginia or to any other state. We're not looking at the overall vote margin. It's just awesome, and I wanted to start off by flexing there. What we want to look at is the turnout margin. We want to look at the percentage of Republicans as compared to the percentage of Democrats and compare that to how they turned out in 2020 to give ourselves an assessment of what we are to expect today in terms of just the overall turnout. Are Democrats coming out? That's all we're trying to figure out. And right now as we speak, the Republican turnout is leading the Democrat turnout by just over 21%. It was 18-point margin back in 2020. It is now a 21-point margin. So we're exceeding the 2020 benchmark. So this is pretty awesome. Anything around or above 20% is amazing. Now we've got some other points of comparison here. Take a look at the latest numbers coming out of Arizona. I mean, gang, the Republicans are absolutely crushing it. Out of 37,000 reported Election Day voters, so it's early, very early, but Republicans make up almost half. 16,358. Democrats are just 7,387. Also, we've got this data coming out of Clark County, Nevada. Again, very, very early. Clark County is reliably blue, by the way. It's Vegas. And admittedly, these numbers are very small, so this is just your initial batch here. But, I mean, take a look at this. In 2020, the breakdown of the Election Day vote was 34.2% Republican, 32.7% Democrat, and 33.1% independent. Election day independents, by the way, do tend to be right-leaning, just so you know. But that's the breakdown in 2020 when Biden won by just 2.5. He won Nevada by 2.5. Take a look at this morning. Republicans are up slightly to 34.7%, but look at the Democrats. They're down. They're down 29.4%, and independents are up 35.9%. So once again, we're getting another indicator. When all said and done, Democrats simply aren't coming out. Again, it's early. Things can change. We'll see how the day plays out. But right now, as we speak, that is not good news for the Democrats. Speaking of, one of the most important indicators that early voting can give us for determining the makeup of today's electorate is racial percentages, particularly the percentage of white versus black vote. So the partisan breakdown, of course, is that whites consistently vote Republican. Democrats haven't won the white vote since Lyndon Johnson back in '64. And the black vote votes overwhelmingly Democrat. This election appears to be a bit different in that all the pre-election polling points to the fact that Trump is poised to get the highest black support of any Republican since Richard Nixon. So we're talking about a half a century. But one of the most important states, this is a key benchmark for the data analyst Robert Barnes, one of the most important states for assessing the white-black vote ratio is Louisiana. Because in past elections, Louisiana's racial breakdown in terms of the election, in terms of the early vote, tends to be a bellwether for the South and the Sun Belt as a whole on Election Day. So here are the numbers coming out of Louisiana's early voting in comparison to 2020. These numbers, I do understand, are complete. They all had to be in by yesterday. Well, let's start by comparing it to 2020. In 2020, the early vote was comprised of 66% white, 30% black. In 2024, it's now 70% white, 25.5% black. Now, that's huge. That's a very significant racial discrepancy that harkens back to more pre-Obama levels for the black vote. An early vote tends to be highly predictive for Election Day turnout when it comes to racial demographics, not necessarily partisan demographics. Right? That's a mistake that many analysts make. The mistake is because one party is absolutely crushing it in early voting. That means they're going to crush it on Election Day. Nope, that's not what happened in 2020. Democrats crushed it. They amassed huge margins in the early vote, but the Republican vote on Election Day was through the roof. That's how Republicans were able to take a 1.1 million early vote firewall lead in Pennsylvania and shave it down to 80,000. Right. So early vote partisan leanings is not predictive of Election Day electorate, but racial breakdowns are. So that's racial breakdown is much more determinative in terms of in the racial breakdown, the racial makeup of the early vote is much more determinative of the racial makeup of Election Day vote. And to that end, to the extent that early voting has been accurately predictive, today's electorate is going to be much more white and much less black than 2020, which of course does have partisan ramifications in that whites vote predominantly Republican and blacks vote predominantly Democrat. So again, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll be updating all throughout the day. You're not going to want to miss a single video update throughout the day. And as always, pray and vote.